Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Diana Trott, and I would like to welcome you to part 1 of session 2 of Nature's Healing Remedies, your pathway to wholeness. This pathway to wholeness is especially important, don't you agree? For such a time as this. We will discover the many healing remedies that God has put in place for us to live healthier, happier lives. We will have a prayer by Dr. Simmons. What was that?
Let us pray. We are grateful, O loving God, for a beautiful day, and most important, for the promise of this day. We pray for your wisdom. We pray for your direction. We are thankful that you placed in the hearts and minds of men information and knowledge as to how we can enjoy better health and wellness. And as today we listen and participate in this wonderful presentation, we pray your blessings will be with the presenter and be with our minds and hearts, that we will receive and retain this wonderful information and enjoy wellness and good health in preparation for your return. Bless us, Jesus, in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Good morning, everyone. Now is part of this section that we will do our quiz. This week, we will be doing 2 sessions. Session 1, quiz, and you should have received your lesson for quiz session number 2. So we will go through this quickly. You just answer true or false with your quiz. I hope everyone is ready. And we will start with question number 1 from session 1. God's remedies are the complex agencies of nature that will not tax or debilitate the system. That is true. Number 2, natural means used in accordance with God's will bring about supernatural results. That is true. We should always be ready to blend spiritual healing with physical healing. The answer is true. In 1848, Ellen G. White received her first vision on health. The answer is true. Number 5, a Seventh-day Adventist who is lean, exercises regularly, and eats a plant-based diet lives 10 to 12 years longer than an Adventist who is overweight, sedentary, eats meat, and seldom eats nuts. The answer is true. Drug companies have a good track record of conducting research studies that we can trust. That answer is false. Disease can be described as a friend, a teaching moment, a fire alarm, an effort of nature to bring us back to health. That answer is true. Number 8, fever is an enemy we need to lower as soon as possible to prevent damaging health effects. That answer is true. Number 9, the medications acetaminophen or ibuprofen are for your child's comfort, but don't help to fight off the viruses and bacteria that lead to symptoms of an infection, such as fever. That answer is false. The medications acetaminophen, or I'm sorry, I just gave you that. Yep. Sorry, fever medications may prolong illness and suppress our immune system. That answer is true. Artificial fever treatments can increase the immune system's white blood cell activity by 200 to 300%. That answer is true. The 4 steps to reversing disease used in nature's remedies in their correct order include determine the cause, assist nature, change conditions, and correct wrong habits. That answer is false. In the medical model of disease, disease is viewed as the enemy that needs to be destroyed. We are not responsible for our state of ill health, and we look to experts to fix us. That answer is true. When you, a physician, understand physiology in its truest sense, your drug bills will be very much smaller. And finally, you will cease to deal out drugs at all. That answer is true. Medical care is the 3 leading cause of death in America, killing 250,000 people in the US hospitals every year. That answer is true. The trillions of microorganisms that inhabit the human body outnumber human cells by 10 to 1. That answer is true. All harmful bacteria that are present in the body cause us physical harm. That answer is false. Microbiome stimulates immunity, breaks down potentially toxic compounds, synthesizes vitamins and amino acids, and helps digest food. That answer is true. The primary cause of disease in the US is in us, always in us. That answer is true. And the smallpox vaccine was effective in eradicating smallpox in Germany. That answer is false. That concludes for session 1, and for quiz number 2, for session 2, question number 1. New Start is a framework for healthy living with each letter in New Start representing a different principle of health. That answer is true. A good eating plan includes eating supper like a king, lunch like a queen, and breakfast like a pauper. That answer is false. Eating until really full and frequent snacking are good eating plans to follow for health and healing. That answer is false. There are 6 phytochemical good families in healthy eating food groups. That answer is true. Healing culinary herbs include, among others, turmeric, sage, mint, ginger, root, oregano, basil, thyme, rosemary, garlic, and onions. That answer is true. Wheat, rye, and barley do not contain gluten. That answer is false. Given the equivalent of sulforaphane in 2 tablespoons to a 1/4 cup of broccoli sprouts to patients with autism, resulting in substantial improvement in behavior, social interaction, and verbal communication skills. That answer is true. Number 8, the cruciferous family of vegetables fight against several cancers, boosts the liver's detoxifying enzymes, and protects the intestinal immune system. That answer is true. Canned tomato sauce, when taken on a daily basis for 3 weeks, is not able to significantly decrease PSA levels or free radical damage of the DNA in white blood cells. That answer is false. Garlic has anti-clotting, antioxidant, immune supporting, and both blood pressure and cholesterol lowering effects. That answer is true. And number 11, we lose 75% of the lycopene in tomatoes when we eat them raw. That answer is true. Higher macular pigment of a plant chemical found in kale is linked to higher academic success, lower odds of getting glaucoma, better hearing function, and lower rates of Alzheimer's disease. That is true. The herb rosemary does not improve alertness, speed of memory, or reduce stress hormone levels. That answer is false. Eating an apple a day may improve a woman's sexual function and lowers the risk of dying from all causes by 35%. That answer is true. Berries have not been shown to reverse precancerous lesions in the mouth and esophagus. That answer is false. Soy food intake after a breast cancer diagnosis has been associated with a significant reduced rate of mortality due to breast cancer and breast cancer recurrence. That answer is true. Flaxseed has been shown to lower high blood pressure and improve ADHD. That answer is true. Replacing white rice with oats and barley may drop diabetes risk by 36%. That answer is true. High gut bacterial richness, superior health is linked to high fiber plant foods. That answer is true. And that concludes our quiz for this week. And do not forget to put your scores on your score sheet. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay. Okay, good morning, Dr. Gibbons. These questions that I had this morning were taken from last week's session, which was session 1. But I noticed that there were several questions regarding COVID-19. But I understand, Dr. Gibbons, that next week, Sunday, session 3, you'll be teaching a whole section on COVID-19. And we'll look for those questions then.
Yes.
Okay. But here's a great question that I have that was taken from last week. Now, last week you mentioned that studies done in the year 2000 stated that medical errors were the leading cause of death. Someone has asked, as of now, Dr. Gibbons, are there any updates on these studies?
Yes, actually, a study was conducted in 2017, a few years ago, and they came to the same conclusions. So a third of the population in America actually die as a result of medication errors. Okay.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, that was the only question I had. So I'll just look forward to having more questions and getting back to you. Okay, thank you.
All right then. Oh, before we leave, actually there was a couple of questions that Shirlene had mentioned. I just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
In session 1, I believe was talking about fever is an enemy we need to lower as soon as possible. That answer was actually false. That wasn't true. And in section 2, the 6 phytochemical families, actually in the handout, I had indicated 5. So if you put 5, you are correct there. And for that question, I believe that's question 8 in session 1. All right.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Gibbons.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Our speaker and myself attended Oakwood University around the same time. Interestingly, he was one of 3 brothers, while I was one of 3 sisters registered then. It wasn't until 6 or 7 years after we graduated from our dear alma mater, however, that we actually met each other in person. That extended weekend in SBI was certainly ordained by God. It was the weekend of my graduate from Loma University, California, and my grade school students, whom I taught at that time, were graduating that weekend as well. Our presenter was an unusual but very welcomed chaperone. The plan had been made without my knowing that he showed up as chaperone on our school class trip to Puerto Rico. Following the tragedies of the recent Hurricane Hugo, the welcomed face was a sight for sore eyes. He, Dr. Gibbons, has made a reputation for himself, providing wellness education and lifestyle change programs for churches, businesses, and other organizations and the general public, using all of the following: his growing expertise in public health nutrition, dietetics, herbal medicine, alcohol and drug counseling, massage therapy, hydrotherapy, public speaking and lifestyle medicine, as well as God's 8 natural remedies as a framework for health and healing. Very importantly, Dr. Gibbons focuses on lifestyle medicine while working with patients and clients in conjunction with their primary care provider and physicians, of course. So he is married to Dr. Rosamond Williams Gibbons, who is a career educator in the government school system and a graduate. She's also a graduate in global or international health from Loma Linda University, referred to earlier. This union between the two is blessed with 2 young adult children, now pursuing their own passions of choice, while, well, of course, their own, it is of choice, after accompanying their parents during years of volunteer community work. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcomed students, I present to you one who has much to share. The person for this week, you've been told the subject, he's the former wellness coordinator of the Bermuda Hospitals Board, the former health promotion coordinator for the Bermuda government, Department of Health, the current health ministries director for the Bermuda Conference of Seventh-day Adventists and Bermuda Wellness and Outreach Center, better known as BWAC. I present to you our lifestyle intervention specialist, my husband, Dr. Leonard L. Gibbons.
Well, good morning, everyone. All right. Oops. I do this right. Okay, good morning, everyone. And I'd like to thank my wife for that introduction. And I'd like to welcome all of you back to our second session. Hopefully you did pretty well in those 2 quizzes. there. And for those of you who are just starting, if this is the first time, I want to welcome you also to our program. Now, if you have questions regarding you want to join, we have one more week. Okay, so up until next Sunday, you have to join. So I want to encourage you, if you want to be a part of the program, to send your information in. And if you look at this flyer right here, you can send your name, your contact number, your email address. We want all three of those. So you either call us at 292-1578 or email to dclbulletin, bulletin, @gmail.com. So that's how you can make contact with us if you want to join the program. Next week will be a special program. We're going to add a special section all on COVID-19. So encourage you to come and invite all your friends and relatives, whoever, to join you. We're going to be talking about the power of New Start in this whole COVID-19. There are supplements that have been shown to help. There is immune boosting options, food. You don't want to miss it. And so that will be happening as a supplement to our main presentation. So you will get this handout during the week. It's not a part of the quiz, the next week's quiz, but you will get the materials. Now, it's a good thing to give you a little I guess, a little synopsis of what we covered last week for those of you who are new, and just a little refresher on a couple of those key points before we get into our presentation for today. First of all, we started with the whole concept that there are many ways of practicing the healing arts, but there's only one way that heaven approves. God's remedies are the simple agencies of nature that will not tax or debilitate the system. So we're going to be talking about, through this whole 8-week session, the simple agencies of nature. Those agencies are pure air and sunlight, abstemiousness, which actually means self-control or temperance, rest, exercise, proper diet, the use of water, trust in divine power. These are the true remedies. And we've been talking about actually the writings of Ellen G. White, the health principles. And we talked a lot about her the first time we were here. And so we're going to look at the science and how it relates to these 8 natural remedies and how we can apply them for a whole range of health issues. Natural means used in accordance with God's will bring about supernatural results. And we're going to be talking about some of those supernatural results that happen as we apply the simple agencies of nature. We also look at 4 steps to reversing dis-ease using nature's remedies. First of all, we determine the cause. And this is looking at the lifestyle factors, our activity, what we're eating, our lack of sleep, overweight, overwork. So there are a number of factors that are actually the real causes of what we label as disease, which in many respects is more symptoms rather than actual problems. But because we don't address the underlying issues, things can get out of hands, and that which is deemed a disease, which in reality is a sign or a symptom, can create problems in and of itself. So the real underlying factors are what we're going to take a look at. Second, we need to change the conditions. So what is the condition that people are experiencing? And the more we know about the condition, the more we know about which of those lifestyle factors are contributing to that. We talked a little bit about that. And next week, we're going to look at COVID-19 in particular, look at the determining causes and talking about how we can help to address it, some natural things. So that's part 2. The third step is correct the wrong habits. So we need to make some adjustments. Maybe we need to eat more. Maybe we need to eat more plant foods. We may need to ask for forgiveness. You know, the fact that we having an unforgiving heart and spirit, that can impact on our health and well-being. Go to bed earlier. So there are a number of things that we can do. And then 4 is to assist nature to expel impurities and reestablish wellness. Sometimes the basic, simple things on the surface are not enough. And we may use hydrotherapy, is the use of water to treat health issues. Putting someone in a whirlpool tub to raise their body temperature can be an effective tool that can help with boosting the immune system to fight against all sorts of infections. Herbs can have a place, certain supplements. Fasting is a powerful tool for healing. Cleansing type programs, medicinal smoothies, and even typical medical drugs. Sometimes we are in a place where we need to add something else. Sometimes we may have blood pressures that are extremely high and in a dangerous level, and we need to get that under control before we make any adjustments in any medications. So there is a place for medical science, there's a place for surgery, but we want to make sure it's in its rightful place. And so we believe that these 4 steps are important way to address the ills by getting to the root underlying cause and not merely symptom management. The medical model of disease is what we also looked at. And I was first introduced to this model at school, at Department of Public Health at Loma Linda University, where I was a student many years ago. And disease is viewed as the enemy. So bacteria, virus, fungi, parasites, cancer, diabetes. So the whole idea is, how do we destroy it or control it? The second thing is, we are not responsible for our state of ill health. And this is where people become more passive. They don't do a lot in terms of their own choices. They may come to a physician, get a prescription, and all they do is take that prescription, not looking at what about the underlying potential factors that could be contributing to why they have that issue. And that's not typically addressed under what we would call the medical model. People tend to go through the system very quickly. They come in, what signs and symptoms, they get a prescription, they're gone, and the next person is in. But the time that is needed to really talk about, what's really going on, oftentimes does not happen. So this whole aspect of approaching disease more like a friend and trying to understand, am I sleeping right? Am I eating right? All about, my living environment. And so there is a lot in terms of lifestyle that goes into why we are sick or where we are in terms of our overall health and well-being. So it's important to address those things, and they're not often addressed in a typical medical model of disease. Now, when we're not responsible, then we leave it to others and we don't make this sort of changes. And what ends up happening is people end up with multiple health conditions and on multiple different types of medication. And it is my belief that that is because we're not really addressing the underlying factors. We're applying a Band-Aid. We're symptom managing rather than getting to the root cause. Number three, we look to, of course, experts outside of ourselves to provide fixes, usually in the form of procedures and pills, and that people take for the rest of their lives. And I talked about some experiences myself with individuals who were on medication for quite some time and but after making significant lifestyle changes, they were able to get off those medications. So there are things we can do if we get to the bottom. So this is what we looked at last time. And one of the consequences of not really getting to the underlying cause is sometimes we end up with more healthcare issues. And we shared this slide on medical care as the third leading cause of death in America. And it's still that today. The most recent study, as I shared earlier, 2017, indicated the results are very similar. And this is all about when we're managing symptoms and not really dealing with the underlying causes, that we end up with more deaths, more issues, rather than solutions. This modern medical model actually came as a result of people like Louis Pasteur. He believed that germs cause disease. We catch bacteria, colds, and viruses, and bacteria could not be found in a healthy body. And we basically showed that that was not true. There are trillions of microbes that live within us, and they work with us so that we can actually maintain a healthy internal state. So the issue is not so much so the presence of viruses and bacteria, but the ability, the balance, and the strength of our immune system and how our body works internally to balance things out. And this was Antonio Bacon. He was during that same time, and he believed that people don't catch germs. Instead, disease-causing germs are actually opportunistic. So they thrive in people whose bodies are weakened or imbalanced internally. So it's this weakening, this unbalanced body inside that creates the environment for the germs to take over. So if we strengthen the body and learn how to keep it well, then even the presence of germs don't necessarily lead to disease. It's getting that right internal balance. So a healthy biological terrain or internal environment is immune to germ infections. And this is what he believed. And so we're looking at this whole aspect from how do we enhance the body's own internal biological terrain? How do we live and walk in such a way so that our body can fight for us no matter what we're exposed to? So the principles, the 8 principles that we looked at last week actually was taken from one paragraph written by Ellen G. White. So what we have done actually is turn those 8 principles into an acronym, which is called New Start. So I'm just going to go through that briefly, just to give you an overall picture of those 8 principles. And it's my belief, if we understand them and apply them well, most of what we call or label as disease will go away of its own accord, especially if we catch it early enough. And so nutrition, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Eating largely of whole plant foods and use of simple healing herbs when appropriate. The E is for exercise, constant, moderate physical activity, integrated into daily living. That's the characteristic of how people in the blue zones who live the longest, what we talked about, they live old, they're older, centenarians, and 5 areas around the world, one of them in Loma Linda, in California, among the Seventh-day Adventists, the only longevity zone in North America. Exercise, so that's an important factor. We're going to be talking about that. Water, 5 or more cups of water internally, externally as hydrotherapy. So we're going to look at that. Sunshine, getting that exposure to sunlight. That's an important part of life. And temperance, which was that word, was abstemiousness. So it's all about moderation and habits that are good and avoiding habits and practices that are potentially harmful for us. Fresh air, the importance of that, what's in the air, and we'll look at that in detail. Rest, getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep, and what happens when we sleep and all the benefits, and trusting more and stressing less. And it's about trusting in God, trusting in a higher power. It's about trusting relationships, positive mindset, sense of purpose, social, family, spiritual connection. So these are the 8 principles that we are going to be expanding upon through the remainder of our time together. So let's get started with food. Now, this is a basic principle of nutrition that we're going to be talking about. It reads as follows, taken from the book, Ministry of Healing by Ellen G. White, the health writer, among others. Grains, fruits, nuts, and vegetables constitute the diet chosen for us by our Creator. These foods, prepared in as simple and as natural manner as possible, are the most helpful and nourishing. They impart a strength, a power of endurance, and a vigor of intellect that are not afforded or provided by a more complex and stimulating diet. Now, this is a bold statement to say. There are people who say, what do you mean? How can you say that? You know, there are other diets. You can eat a whole lot of other things. You don't just have to eat grains, fruits, and nuts and vegetables. Yes, you can say that, and we can choose to eat a number of things. Now, the question is, what does the science say? And this is where a lot of people in our world today tend to go. Okay, give me the proof, show me that what you're sharing actually does work. So we're going to look at the science. We're going to look at the science of grains and fruits and nuts and vegetables, and we're going to see how do these foods impact on what we label as disease, whether it's diabetes or cancer or heart disease or what have you. Do people that consume these foods have the lowest amount of ill health? And so we're going to look at some of those examples today. Now, one of those, pretty clear, is the dietary intake of the longest living and healthiest population groups in the world today is 95% plant-based or more, which includes legumes, beans, peas, lentils, and peanuts. So the 5 longest living and healthiest population groups in the world today are largely, almost exclusively plant-based. So that's a starting point. But let's take a look a little closer. Now, these are the 5 zones, as you can see there. One of them is in Loma Linda, California, where I went to school, university. And so let's unpack that. But first of all, let's start with some principles of healthy eating. And first one is eat breakfast like a king. Now, this another goes along with eat lunch like a prince and eat supper like a pauper. So the whole idea is eat your largest proportion of meal of the day between breakfast and lunch, and that your dinner is to be the lightest. Now, what does the research show about this? Actually, people who tend to eat breakfast and eat a significant part of the meal as breakfast, they don't tend to snack much. They have better weight control. They have lower risk of diabetes and elevated blood fats and a whole lot of health issues that people tend to have. They do better when they eat breakfast, and it makes sense. You breaking the fast. You haven't eaten over all night, and now you're preparing for a new day. And so breakfast is the best, should be towards the largest meal of the day. Now, this is an example here of a typical healthy breakfast. It's got some form of a whole grain, got some raisins, some nuts, and fruit, and fresh fruit. So this is an example of a breakfast that is plant-based. Another is a fruit crisp. This looks more like an apple pie sort of thing, but dessert-like, but actually really healthy for you. It's not so much the name of it, but what you put in it. And fruit crisps are basically, you would have cut up fruit if you're using fresh fruit, putting that on the bottom of like a casserole dish. You can include like pineapple juice or something like that. You can have something thickened if you want it. You can even have dates with it. You can have blended up dates to give it a little sweetness. And then we make sort of like a granola type crust, crumbled cup, and you crumble that all on the top. You bake that in the oven, and now you scoop that up, put that in your bowl, and here you've got your grains, and you could have actually nuts in that. And then you can have some fresh fruit on the side. So that's an example of a second breakfast. A third is waffles. And making them yourself is probably a good way to go. You can have oats with nuts or seeds, blended up. You can have a sweetener added to it, and you pour it in your mold, your waffle makers. And on top, you can top it with, and this is like berries. They can be thickened over the stove. They can be actually sweetened with date syrup. Basically, 1 part of dates to 3 to 4 parts water. That could be sort of soaked, or then that could be blended up. And so now you have the syrup that could be put in the fridge, and you can use that as a sweetener. Another option for sweetening things that doesn't use just straight sugar. And a smoothie, that's another example. You've got you've got some spinach here, and your bananas, you've got nuts and seeds, and smoothie could be a nice breakfast, especially if you're rushing, you need to get out and move. You can actually have your ingredients actually in the fridge already ready, something in a bag already bagged up, and all you do is put them all in the blender and blend it first thing in the morning, and take that in a thermos or what have you, and you can take your breakfast with you as you go. So there are ways we can start to have a good breakfast. Well, lunch is also a good food. This example here is sort of like a wrap. You've got beans and onions and grains and all of that all put together in a wrap and seasoned. This is a saute type of lunch, and this looks like tofu and other vegetables and seasonings. So this is an example of what one can do for plant-based. This is another way of doing this here. You've got this folding over, and then you've got like a dressing, and dressings can be made homemade. You can use nuts and seasonings and flavorings that give it a nice creaminess. You can add lemon to it to create tartness. And so the different seasonings to give it a little heat. And so you can make a really, and a little sweetener if you want a little sweetener. So it's a little sweet, a little tart, a little spicy. And that dressing just helps to highlight the flavors and really add something else to that meal. And this is sort of what you used to call like a Buddha bowl. So everything is in the bowl. whole meal. You see, you got the salad type ingredients on the bottom, and then you got your various cooked vegetables. You got some legumes here. You got your avocado slices, and you may have a dressing. So it's an all-in-one type of meal. And this is just some examples of meals based on a whole plant approach. And in addition to that, you would have a nice large salad. So these represent mostly some cooked type meal, pieces to the meal. And by the side of it, you have a nice large salad, and we'll talk about why that is important as we go along. And of course, supper like a pauper. So supper should be light, a very light soup. And this is with a little crackers or swayback. Swayback is a word that means twice baked. And when infants or babies are teething, we may give them this type of bread that sort of melts in your mouth. And that's the easiest one to digest. You can actually take bread, put it in the oven under a low heat until all the moisture is taken out. And if you eat that, it actually tastes sweeter than regular bread. It starts that process of breaking it down, and it makes it easier to digest. And so things that should be eating in the last meal should be very light, probably not a lot of nuts and things of that sort, vegetables or fruit based or something like that. This is looking like a dessert, something like a little fruit, layered type of put together, or something that you can put together that's actually based on all healthy plant-based options. So that's something that could be had for. Fruit soup is something that can be also consumed. Many years ago, I worked at a Libyan lifestyle center in America called UT Pines, and they serve two good meals, breakfast and lunch, and dinner was very sparse. And one of the things they would have is like fruit soup. And fruit soup can be served cool, or it can be served warm. Now, some people may think of fruit is warm. Well, actually, fruit soup is really nice. It can be sort of thickened, and it can be cool or it can be warm. And that's an example. An example of even the lighter is just some tea, some herbal tea. So that can be very light. So these are examples of things that are perhaps a smaller type dinner. And ideally, that dinner should be 3 hours or more before you go to sleep. All right, so let's look at some other principles of healthy eating. Chew your food well and slowly, and avoid eating multiple dishes at the same time. Sometimes we go out to these events where it looks like it's about 30 or 40 different things you can choose from. Probably not the best way to eat. We're looking at a lot of different foods and different chemical. Let's keep it closer to 3 or 4 different types of foods, and not a whole ton of different things that have different enzyme systems for digestion. Keep it simple, especially if you're unwell. You want to be very simple, not as complex in multiple dishes, a few rather than many. Avoid overeating and snacking. We do not need to snack. When I was in college and university, when you're talking about helping people with weight loss and with blood sugar disorders, they would share this whole idea of snacking, eating smaller amounts of food so that we will create a lessened response to blood sugar spikes by the smaller meals, and also helping to keep the metabolism going, because you're eating about 6 times a day, helping with burning calories. Well, this has not been shown to really be something that shows much difference between people who are consuming 2 or 3 meals a day People can eat 2 meals a day and be perfectly fine. There are those with eating breakfast and lunch, and they have no problem with weight loss, and they do well, perfectly well. And for some people, that may be a good plan for them. They've done and tried a whole lot of things. And in fact, there was one doctor many years ago, and he shared one piece of advice to his patients. And he just said, well, eat your breakfast, during the early part of the day, and have eat your lunch and eat nothing after 2. And this is one advice. He didn't change what they ate. All he said is complete all your meals by 2 in this example, and just about everyone lost weight. So it's when you eat, and if you eat your principal meals between breakfast and lunch, you will have better health overall. So don't have to snack, you don't have to overeat. Eat until just satisfied. Eat fruit and vegetables as separate meals to promote optimal digestion. In the writings of Ellen G. White, she talks about this idea of fruits and vegetables. And there are some exceptions to this idea. And one of the scientific rationales that have been given is some of the vegetables with hard, more compact cells of the mature greens and vegetables takes more effort to digest and break down. So if you're mixing some of these things, it affects how long food has to stay in the stomach for digestion. So this is one of the thoughts. However, foods that are younger, like sprouts or even the baby kale and all those other things, they actually absorb, digest it much more efficiently. Putting the foods in a blender to blend things, and I shared some ideas in your handouts that would be useful in terms of that. But this is a general principle, and if you're just don't try to mix them too much. Now, in a smoothie situation, everything's blended up very, very fine. So there's no issue in terms of breaking down the cell wall, because the smoothie is actually exposing the nutrients that the body can actually absorb them. All right, so that's just a basic principle. And if you have digestive issues, give it a try and see if things improve for you, especially if you have issues in terms of your indigestion and all of this. All right, so give it a try, and if it helps you, then that's something you can do. Avoid drinking with your meals. A smaller amount of liquid is fine, but cups and cups of liquid with your meal has to absorb first before digestion can start. And sometimes we may be washing down food that should be first chewed. So more liquid, the less likely you're going to chew it. So the chewing is part of that digestive process. So not a lot of liquid, probably a good thing is if you're having significant liquid, have it 30 minutes before and a couple of hours after, to avoid too much liquid with the meal. Okay? Avoid or consume more like a seasoning, animal products, and highly processed foods. And we're going to be talking about why that is the case. All right, avoid lying down or sleeping after meals. Of course, this is an important thing. The sleeping, digestion should be taking place while we're asleep. Digestion shouldn't be happening while we're sleeping. There's a lot that should be happening while we're sleeping and not digesting of food. And we'll be talking about that as we go along. All right, so if you look in your handouts, there's a whole section talking about the phytochemicals, phytofood chemicals. If you take a look at that section, it actually meal plan ideas. And if you look at this whole question, before we get there, actually healthy eating food groups. And if you go to that section, now we're going to be talking about the phytochemical families. Now, phyto means plant and chemical means chemicals. So these are plant chemicals. They're not vitamins. They're not minerals. They're not proteins, but they are plant constituents that have amazing protective and healing properties. So God put them in the plants, and we're going to talk about some of those amazing things. Now, if you don't have a handout and you just joined us, we're talking about the vegetable piece. And what we're looking at least 2 cups of greens a day, a half a cup of the cruciferous family, which we're going to start out with, and 2+ cups of other vegetables. Okay? And so the idea is to get a cross-section of foods from the 5 phytochemical families. And let's talk about the power of these plant compounds. Okay, cruciferous. So it's broccoli, broccoli sprouts, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, kale, kohlrabi, mustard greens, turnip greens, bok choy, collard greens. These are foods, vegetables that have some amazing healing properties that we are going to take a look at. First of all, cruciferous means cross-bearing because the 4 petals on the plant resemble a cross. Now, one study demonstrated that eating 2 cups a day of cruciferous vegetables reduced the risk of dying by 20%. That's significant compared to people that consume no cruciferous vegetables. In fact, cruciferous vegetables has been shown to prevent DNA damage. And we think of DNA damage when we think of cancer and other things where, this genetic part of us that determines who we are, and when that code is damaged, it can affect disease. So cancer and all types of health issues. So what has been shown, it prevents DNA damage, the spread of cancer cells. So it slows down the ability of cancer cells to spread, and also lymphoma, a particular type of cancer. Now, these are cruciferous vegetable, cabbage family vegetables target breast cancer stem cells. Now, what are stem cells? Stem cells are the cells that really direct things in life. And so what happens, a number of people who are getting chemotherapy for treatment, let's say they're not at your early stages, but they're at, maybe, farther on down the road, it's metastasized, it's gone somewhere else. And they get treatment and chemotherapy and whatever treatments. And then they go into remission. And then a few years later comes back. And this time it's even more challenging than before. And a number of people who start out and the numbers are reduced, yet it comes back and they lose their battle with it. Now, the question is, why is it? Why is it that the chemotherapy and the radiation and all of that is able to reduce the number significantly, but then it comes back? Well, one of the reasons, because the stem cells, cancer stem cells, have an ability to evade some of the chemotherapy drugs. So while all the other cells they are destroyed, these cells are preserved. And then from there, these cells, a whole new family of cancer cells are created, so to speak, that come back and ravage the body. Well, what we do know is cruciferous families, vegetables, can target and destroy these stem cells. So this is important. It also reduces the risk of prostate cancer progression. So we're looking at DNA damage and several types of cancers. We're looking at your overall risk of dying decreased by consuming cruciferous family vegetables. Now, these plants boost liver detoxifying enzymes. So your liver has different enzyme systems that are designed to detoxify. You take something in that's poisonous or, germs. We're always exposed. We're breathing in. We're eating things that have things in them. So a lot of people talk about this whole aspect of detoxifying it. I want to go on a detox. Well, if you really want to help the liver work even better, give it these liver detoxifying enzyme promoting foods. Not only do they affect the liver, they affect the intestinal immune system. Now, your immune system, a large portion of your immune system is in your gut. It's in your intestinal system. And that makes sense because whatever we're taking, before things get into your general circulation, your system, your body wants to make sure what? Make sure nothing gets in that is unhealthy. So you got these immune cells that bathe your intestinal lining that help to fight against pathogens, all right, and pollutants. And you can even take cabbage leaves, fresh cabbage leaves, and you can wrap them around your knee if you have arthritis pain and put a bandage around that. And that has actually been shown to reduce pain. Isn't that amazing? Externally, application as well as internal. So these plants are very good. Now, one of the plant chemicals is called sulforaphane. Now, it is the most potent known inducer of liver phase 2 detoxification enzyme. Now, I'm not going into detail what phase 2 is all about, but bear in mind, this is the most potent known, okay? Liver phase 2 detox. So you have any issues, you have allergies, you catch colds or whatever, it's important to boost your level of sulforaphane. Now, it is activated by cooking unless chopped and left uncooked for 40 minutes. So your cruciferous vegetables, if you cook your cruciferous vegetables before 40 minutes of chopping, this enzyme will be inactivated. So cruciferous vegetables are one food. If you want to get the benefits of sulforaphane, you must have something from this family raw, okay? So this is the exception. There are other things like tomatoes. If you cook them, you get more of the phytochemical lycopene. But sulforaphane, you only get that if you chop it up and leave it for 40 minutes. Then if you cook it, you get all the benefits of the sulforaphane. Okay, so there's an enzyme in these plants, and they are activated after you chop them up. So you're chopping them up, and then that activity of creating sulforaphane will happen if the chopped cruciferous family vegetables are left out for 40 minutes, okay, before cooking. Now, mustard green seeds, if they're powdered and they're added, they can actually activate sulforaphane in cooked foods. So that could be added, raw cruciferous. That will also help with your body's sulforaphane being activated. Given the equivalent of 2 tablespoons to a quarter cup of broccoli sprouts to patients with autism results in substantial improvements in behavior, social interaction, and verbal communication, which all disappeared once the broccoli was stopped. Now, this was an amazing piece of research. When we consider and think of this question of autism, nobody that I've ever spoken to has ever said anything about, you eat broccoli sprouts. That can actually improve, has been shown to improve the behavior, social interest, and verbal communication of individuals who have autism. Well, it is this powerful factors now broccoli sprouts have the highest percentage of sulforaphane, period. Okay, so if you can get it sprouted, I have never had anyone come to me who had autism or anyone ever asked, came to me and asked if I could help somebody with autism. Basically, we do not think anything can help. So we just do what we can to mitigate other factors. But there is good news. And this study actually demonstrated significant improvements. And when they stopped consuming the sprouts, all the symptoms disappeared. So this gives us some clear indication that there's something here. And believe me, it's plants, broccoli sprouts, and autism. Give it a go. Someone who has autism, a friend, a relative, broccoli sprouts. Give it a go. Or the whole broccoli also has this into it. All right. Now, 1 ounce of broccoli sprouts is equivalent to 1.5 pounds of broccoli in terms of sulforaphane content. So the sprouts have a significant amount. You can buy the seeds. You can sprout it yourself, and they can sprout very quickly. And then you can add it to your vegetables. You can throw it in a smoothie. You can boost your liver detoxifying enzymes by just adding that to a typical, meal. Now, broccoli sprouts may counteract the negative effects of air pollution, significantly decrease inflammation, and inhibit influenza B virus. So we know that this broccoli sprouts, or the sulforaphane content, high levels in these cruciferous vegetables inhibit influenza viruses. Will it impact on this one? COVID-19 hasn't been studied, but I don't see any reason why it wouldn't benefit the body's own healing, self-healing mechanisms. One of the factors, it decreases inflammation. And inflammation is a driving factor in COVID-19, in individuals, who have this cytokine storm, there is a whole lot going on. We'll talk a little bit more about that next week. So make sure you're here next week. So this is good news. So inflammation, air pollution, people who are smoking, decreases the toxic effect and the toxins that you can be exposed to in the air. Why? Because it helps the liver detoxifying enzymes work very well. So when you're exposed to it, helps your body get rid of it. Carotene family, or carotenoids, sweet potatoes and carrots, winter squash, pumpkin, orange peppers, and even leafy greens. So a lot of carotenoids, we think of it in terms of your orangey type vegetables. You follow me? Orangey, pumpkin, etc. But greens also have carotenoids, even though they look green, but they also have this plant chemical. This is important. Now, carotenoids like beta carotene are fat soluble. That means they're communicated in a fat medium. So if you need fat to absorb them, okay, you can boost their absorption from foods by up to 15 times by adding something with fat. So avocados, nuts, and seeds added to these types of vegetables will boost their absorption. Now, carotenoids can create a healthy glow to your skin. It's what I would call makeup from the inside. God has put some amazing properties in certain foods. And if we consume them, they change how we look. And we're going to see an example of that in just a minute. They also protect your skin from the damage due to UV rays or sun rays. They reduce the risk of lung cancer and death from heart disease. Isn't that amazing? These carotenoid families. So you got your greens, you got your yellows, you got your oranges. these are potent phytochemical plant compounds that God has given us. Now, take a look at this here. To the far left, you see someone who is consuming very little of carotenoid-rich foods. And then they're increasing, and then to the far right, you see that glow? And in fact, in research studies, they were asking, so which looked most attractive? And the conclusion was those who had the most carotenoids, that glow, were deemed more attractive. So if you really want to be attractive, eat more, consume more carotenoid-rich foods, and from the inside out, you will truly glow. This is with African Americans, and this is with Caucasians, and you see that enhanced glow in C as opposed to A in F, as opposed to D in this example. So makeup on the inside, eat your cruciferous, not your cruciferous, your carotenoid vegetables. So higher than total blood carotenoid levels have been linked to lower rates of depression, better mood, and being asthma-free. Think about it. Depression is associated with low levels of carotenoids. Negative moods are associated with lower levels of these plant compounds. And in fact, they've actually had studies where they have taken people and on a low fruit and vegetable intake, measured their scores, stress scores, their mood scores, and made this change in diet and a radical change in moods just by changing diet. So what we're seeing here is as we are adapting these powerful plant-based foods, they are addressing and preventing some of the diseases of our day, which in actual fact are more symptomatic than really are what we would call diseases themselves, right? Because disease is a friend, right? It is a wake-up call from nature. It's an alarm system letting us know that what? Something is going wrong. We need to make some adjustment in our lifestyle habits. So the question is not how do I fix the disease, but how do I adjust the way I live so my body can bring me back in balance. So low dietary intakes of folate, this is found in dark greens, which are also have carotenoids, is linked to severe depression, as much as a 3-fold higher risk of severe depression. Women in their 70s with the most carotenoid phytonutrients in their bloodstreams were twice as likely to survive 5 years longer. So it increases longevity. We're talking about depression. We're talking about positive moods, talking about asthma. We're talking about a healthy skin glow, all from these plants. Now, this is one example of a young lady who had asthma. And she made a radical change in her diet. She went all plant-based. And what happened? The change was almost immediate. No more coughing after meals, and I didn't need to use my inhaler at all. Having been dairy-free for just over a year now, and this has been the first year that she had not been plagued with a winter cough. She can now exercise without getting shortness of breath and being forced to stop. 43-year-old had asthma ever since she was a child, and all her systems went away when she went plant-based. There's something amazing, powerful about consuming whole plant foods. Okay, lycopene, the red, the tomatoes, the watermelon, the beets. It protects the body from the damage due to free radicals And free radicals damage your DNA, and your DNA that's damaged. It leads to cancer and actually accelerated aging, wrinkling, and all of these things are associated with. So this lycopene is a very useful and protective. Now, 3/4 of a cup of canned tomato sauce. Now remember, it's the cooked tomatoes that give you the lycopene. A high percentage. Yes, actually, we're going to look at that in the next page. And actually, that was, I think, one of your quiz questions. So 3/4 cups of canned tomato sauce every day for 3 weeks, drop PSA level. This is a marker in man that is associated with inflammation of the prostate and also with prostate cancer and other issues. Now, the PSA level decreased 17.5% in 3 weeks, and free radical damage to white blood cells by 21%. Think about it. Now, if your white blood cells are damaged, can they really work for us? They're part of your immune system. And so when viruses and bacteria and all sorts of other things come against us, we want to make sure that our white blood cells are working great. And one way to do that is add tomatoes. Tomatoes is an example of something that can work. So tomatoes can be cooked, right, as a part of a sauce, as a part of a soup. You follow me? So we're getting these amazing phytochemicals, and we've got our potatoes and our sweet potatoes, right? And then if you want some fat, some healthy fat, probably healthier fat, rather than just adding oil to that, you can blend up a little cashews with water, so it's nice and creamy. And if you add that to a soup, it gives it a nice creaminess. In actual fact, it actually thickens. So now you've got this fat in there, which helps with the carotenoids. And you've got the tomato sauce in there that's helping. And as we go along, we're going to talk about other things that you can add to the whole mix. And then on the side, you're going to have this fresh salad that you're going to have some of your cruciferous vegetables so that you can get the benefits of those phytochemicals that are in this sulforaphane. And isn't this making sense? Isn't this all coming together as what we can do to protect the body and to promote healing? Tomato juice can lower our bad cholesterol 13%. Successfully treat seasonal allergies and help treat asthma. Amazing. Now, we lose 70%, 75% when we eat tomatoes raw. So you eat raw potatoes and you eat what? Cooked potatoes. So you get more lycopene from the cooked, but you get other things more off when it's raw. So have some raw, have some cooked. Gingivitis, gum disease, improved 30%. Just 1 week, eating what? 1 tomato a day. You see, the amazing thing, I mean, when you look at it, look at what we're talking about here, and you ask yourself, man, I have this, I have that, and I'm going and I'm getting a pill for this, a pill for this, and a pill for that. Then we really should be doing is asking ourselves, so what are you eating? Are you getting carotenoid-rich foods? Are you getting foods that are rich in lycopene? Are you getting foods that are cruciferous? You know, are you getting those phytochemical foods? And if we do that, we will see some amazing benefits. And I've seen it in the patients that have come to me with issues for years. And in a week or two, it's all gone. All my symptoms are gone. I'm feeling better. I'm sleeping better. I've got a new lease on life that I've been struggling for years. I tell you, there's something in these natural remedies. Now, let's go to the alum family. Your garlic, your green, red, and yellow onions, your scallions, your leeks, your shallots. Now, garlic seems to improve the function of the inner lining of our arteries, which help our arteries relax. So lowers our blood pressure. It's anti-clotting, so it helps to thin the blood. Do you know that clotting is a factor associated with COVID-19? One of the dangerous impacts is this blood clotting effect in late stage. So whatever we can do to keep the blood free flowing is something we want to engage. So you cut up your onions and your garlic and your leeks and your chives, and you can add that to your soup, right? So we've got chives and all of that in there. We've got the cruciferous, we've got the carotenoids, all right, anti-clotting, antioxidant, immune supporting, blood pressure, cholesterol lowering. Now, the antiplatelet activity that prevents the blood from clotting is lost when they are cooked. So this is another thing you want to be aware of if you want the antiplatelet effect. Cooking, so you can cut up, you can slice, you can put some red onions in your salad. You follow what I'm saying? You can do a garlic cough syrup. We'll talk about that at another time. Another way of doing that. All right. Now, the addition of a little raw garlic juice to good garlic can restore the full complement of its antiplatelet activity. So you can reserve a little raw garlic juice on the side, and you can saute up your vegetables or cook up your soup or what have you. And when it's all done, then you can add a little bit of this fresh juice. Add that to the mix, and the antiplatelet activity comes back in full. Isn't that amazing? So there is a way of working around these things. Now, garlic appears 13 times more potent than onions. So it's a powerhouse. So make sure you have plenty of that. The alum family can inhibit the growth of brain, breast, prostate, kidney, pancreatic, and stomach cancers from 75 to 100% in cell culture. So we have this culture, and we drip these cancerous cells in there, and then we put garlic on it. In fact, they used a lot of different vegetables, and they want to find out which one kills the most of these cancer cells. And what was right on the top was the garlic, this garlic alum family. The second group was the cruciferous vegetables. So the number one was garlic and leeks and all of that. And the second was your cruciferous vegetables. So those are the two most potent phytochemical family groups as it relates to this whole aspect of cancer. Now, let's take a look at your eyes. Now, when the doctor looks in the back of your eyes, this is what he sees. Okay, now lutein is a phytochemical that has an affinity for this part of your brain. It's sort of like, you've got these chemicals that live, as it were, in this part of you, and they have a protective factor. A significant relationship or correlation exists between the amount of macular pigment. The macula is right in the back. You see that dark spot, dark place there? Okay, so the amount of the macular pigment that, like lutein is one of those, in our eyes and cognitive test tools. So your thinking and memory, the ability to think and memory is related to how much of this pigment you have, all right? And how efficient our nerves communicate. So your nerves communicate from cell to cell in your brain, right? And your spinal cord. And out of that, and one of the factors is associated with is lycopene. All right, so this is an important compound, and it's highest in kale. Kale has more lycopene than almost anything else. Okay, so persons with Alzheimer's disease have less of this macular pigment in their eyes. Green vegetables are required to maintain a large population of lymphocytes. These are white blood cells in our intestinal tract. Now, most of our immune system is in our intestines. And the more greens you have, the higher amount of these protective immune cells are going to live in your gut. Think about it. So greens, immune system, greens, right? Greens, cognitive function, nerve communication, lower likelihood of having Alzheimer's disease, okay? This is good news. Higher macular pigment is also associated with academic success, decreasing the odds of glaucoma by 69%. And this experiment I thought was simply amazing. One servant in a month promoted superior and also supports superior hearing function. So ability to hear, glaucoma, academic success, all associated with this. So if we have young kids and we want them to be successful, give them the greens. They need greens. Hearing function, think about it, glaucoma, maybe even cataracts. Increase these greens, have these amazing properties of protecting our functions, eye function. Now, half a cup of kale has 50 times more lutein than an egg, a spinach salad, or 50 egg omelets. Now, there's some research that's talking about, eggs have lutein or what have you. But in reality, a half a kale has 50 times more. So if you really want to get your lutein levels up, you want to go for the kale. Kale could also be added to a smoothie, correct? So you can make a power smoothie that can have some amazing transforming effects. And we'll talk about some of that maybe another time. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some herbs. We've got turmeric and sage and mint and ginger, oregano, rosemary and fennel and garlic. What's amazing is these herbs, many of them, we look at them as things we cook with, but they don't not only provide flavor, they provide healing. They are powerful medicines. And in fact, I'm going to talk about one of them, just one, just to give you a taste. Rosemary. The aroma from rosemary has been shown to improve alertness and cognitive functions, ability to think, right? Our thinking and memory, reduce stress hormone levels. Speed memory was improved by consuming half a teaspoon of rosemary a day. Now you go to the grocery store and they sell, these bottles of rosemary, but hey, people have it growing, bushes. Use it as decorative in certain places around Bermuda. Even the botanical garden has lots of rosemary and other places. So a little bit of rosemary can go a way to help with alertness and cognitive function and stress hormones and memory. Amazing, just a half a teaspoon. Other studies have looked at some amazing effects, improving the fasting blood sugar. Hemoglobin A1C, it's a marker of how your blood sugar has changed, over the past 30 days. And even vitamin B12 levels. Don't know the mechanism, but levels of vitamin B12 in individuals compared before and after consuming these supplements of, ground up rosemary, their B12 levels increased, the hemoglobin A1C went down, their fasting blood sugar went down. So it's good for people who have blood sugar, issues, when the real issue is not the blood sugar, right? The real issue is the overall lifestyle. So when we're eating right and we're exercising, we're doing all of these positive things, many of the diseases go away. And this is what we're talking about and looking at. So that's rosemary. All right, now what about fruit? Flavonoid-rich fruits, that's another phytochemical. So you got your berries, your lemons, your oranges, your grapes, your cantaloupes, your cherries, and your apples. These are good. Now, an apple a day can improve a woman's sexual function. And apple a day can lower the risk of dying from all causes, from all types of disease by 35%. Now, that's amazing. It improves artery function. It lowers blood pressure. Amazingly, Ellen G. White, who we've been talking about, you missed our first section, go back and go online and take a look at that. Over 100 years ago, she wrote, and this is what she wrote: apples are superior to any fruit for a standby that grows. So she advised that apple, if you can only get one, get apples. And this study shows 35% risk of dying from all causes by just eating an apple a day. Well, I guess an apple a day, that would be a good thing. So for an apple a day keeps the doctor away. What else? Now, inadequate fruit and vegetable intake is linked to 2.6 million deaths per year worldwide. Can you imagine that? Not enough fruits and vegetables linked to 2.6 million deaths worldwide. So fruits and vegetables, these are critical to your overall health and well-being. Life expectancy is reduced by 3 years in people who do not consume fruits and vegetables. 3 years. Now that's a lot of years. Wow. On a daily basis, compared to people who eat 5 servings a day, cuts 3 years off one's life expectancy. All right. So this is all important. Now I know a couple of you have raised your hands, and what we're going to do is you need to put your questions online, and we will answer all your questions next week. We don't have time enough to answer those questions today. We've got a lot to cover, but we're going to answer all your questions. So make sure you come early next time. So put all your questions in, and we are going to answer all those questions. So make sure you jot them down, and we'll take a look at those next week. Okay, now berries decrease inflammation and pain while improving overall quality of life in obese adults with osteoarthritis. So we're talking about arthritis, we're talking about pain, we're talking about inflammation. And inflammation is one of the drivers in COVID-19, inflammation. One of the highest groups of people that have COVID-19 are people who are obese, a significant amount. And why is this? The more fat you have, the higher the level of inflammation. Inflammation that is long-term, low-grade inflammation is a negative immune effect. So it compromises immune function. All right, it's like a flame that actually creates more problems than solutions. So we're not going to get into that. But arthritis pain, they speed recovery from excess weight lifting induced muscle damage. So if you're lifting weights, you're exercising, and you get this soreness, well, if you increase your intake of berries, it will actually help speed up the rate at which that goes away. It improves mood scores, it improves cognitive decline and functioning ability in seniors. So you have seniors who are, they're not as steady mentally, cognitively, their thinking and memory, their functional mobility, their ability to move from here to there, all of these things, amazing. Berries, a bowl of berries, amazing. And there's some research that looks at, in the women's health study, decreased cognitive aging by several years with those who were consuming more berries. So this is a good thing. These are good fruits to consume. They have been shown to reverse precancerous lesions in the mouth, the esophagus, and lower the risk of becoming diabetic and getting Parkinson's disease. I mean, this is simply amazing. In fact, the precancerous lesions in the mouth, they made this paste, and they rubbed it in this area where these precancerous growths, it was starting to get this inflammation that would lead to a more, concerning cancerous growth, and it went away. And the esophageal precancerous lesions going down the esophagus, they get the equivalent of like a cup worth of fresh berries a day, and it just took it all away. Amazing, just consuming berries. Okay, let's look at the legumes. Your beans, your peas, your garbanzos, your black peas, your lentils, your green peas. Beans decrease excess body weight. cholesterol levels, insulin resistance, inflammatory levels, oxidative stress, we're talking about rusting on the inside. Just a half a cup of beans a day can reduce the risk of a heart attack by 38% and significantly improve artery functions in patients with diseased arteries, peripheral, out in your extremities. So eating beans have a what we call a second meal effect. If you ate beans with your breakfast, it will help your blood sugar control for breakfast and also for lunch. So it will help 2 meals. Regardless of what you ate for lunch, you will have better blood sugar control because of what you ate beans at breakfast. That's amazing. Don't have time to go into how that happens. So it's very good for blood sugar dysregulation. Beans are a good friend. Okay, they can significantly decrease hemoglobin A1C, that's a marker of blood sugar, over the last 3 months, and resting heart rate by as much as exercising 250 hours on a treadmill. Now, we know when we exercise, it actually lowers your resting heart rate. That's the rate at which your heart beats at rest. You know, your heart only rests between beats, right? So if it's beating 80 times a minute, right? That's a lot of beats. Now, if you're healthy, it should be closer to around 60 beats a minute. So then you're resting, you're getting more rest as a result of that. So, but amazingly, eating beans can lower your resting rate by, significantly even better than exercise. So, hey, beans are amazing. Studies have said an 8% reduction in risk of death for every 2 tablespoons of beans consumed. The oldest living people group in the world today eat beans or legumes. You don't like them, try to figure out a way of adding them to other things, to disguise the flavor, to disguise the texture. It can be a thickener, uses a thickener. It can even be added to a smoothie. Not a lot, a quarter cup of cooked light, not strong flavored beans added to all the other things, which can override the flavor of the beans, and you still have a nice healthy smoothie with the beans added too. Studies happen. So this is a longevity thing. All right, the longest people group in the world today, all of them eat beans. Soy food intake in breast cancer, 10,000 women. Significant reduced mortality and reduced reoccurrence. And there's a lot of talk about estrogen from the soybeans creating problems. But the truth is this: the estrogenic receptors in the body includes both alpha, which are harmful, and beta, which are protective. Beta receptors are activated by soybeans. So this is Adami. Adami, I pronounced it right. You can get it in the produce areas. This is soybeans, okay? Of course, there's tofu, there's soy milk, and beans can be soaked overnight. They can be blended up and added to oats and other things and made into a waffle. You wouldn't even know it's beans in there. So there are ways of doing this that can result in significant benefit to your health and well-being. Oh, nuts, seeds, pumpkin seeds, almond nuts, sunflower seeds, flax seeds, great in small amounts. Men eating 3 to 4 handfuls of pistachios a day for just 3 weeks experience significantly firmer erections. So there are some potent factors in pistachios and pumpkin seeds and a whole lot of others. Nuts lower cholesterol, prevent strokes, improve brain health, and prevent sudden cardiac death. Walnuts enhance critical thinking skills. Think about it. Look at a walnut. What does it look like? It actually looks like a brain. It looks like your brain. And it enhances critical thinking skills. Amazing. Flaxseed has amazing benefits. I mean, I could go on forever. Hot flash, insulin insensitivity, ADHD, high blood pressure, fatty liver disease, mood disorders, insulin insensitivity, on and on and on. If we're eating the plants, they will prevent, they will arrest, and in many cases, they will reverse that which we call disease. Ultimately, because disease is not the real issue. Lifestyle is the real issue. We get lifestyle imbalance and disease goes away many times. Not always, because sometimes we've been abusing ourselves, either knowingly or unknowingly, for a long time. And so we've created these weaknesses that require something else to help us manage. Okay? And a prime example of that is the beta cells in the pancreas that produce insulin are shot, they're destroyed. So if they're destroyed, you need to have external insulin, right, to live. So let's move on. Grains. Grains are good. Now, a person with high gut bacterial richness. Now, when we're talking about bacterial richness, we've got higher number of microbial genes. So you got much diverse family of microbes that are living in you. And we have trillions of them, right? People who have a higher number of these microbial genes have superior health. And they also consume diets that are high in fruits and vegetables and fiber. And fiber is friend for your gut. If you want good bacteria, you want to consume foods that are high in fiber. That's more important than probiotics. I mean, probiotics. You eat tons of the fibrous foods, you will have a healthy bacterial colon. Don't have to worry a lot about adding a lot of prebiotics. Okay. Now, gut bacteria can create an anti-obesity compound from fiber. That's where you get. They decrease appetite, so we eat less. Isn't that amazing? So appetite control is created by eating foods that increase gut bacteria, and the type of compounds those bacteria create help us with our appetite control. Not only they help us with an appetite control. So, all right. Now, in one study, whole grain, barley, or brown rice, or both grains, altered the gut bacteria, lowered systemic inflammation in the body. So inflammation is a driver of most disease that people have, right? And barley and brown rice grains are altered. So they give you that good bacteria, lower inflammation, which is good for a ton of things. Now, whole grains added to the diet decrease blood pressure, increase the incidence of CAD, heart disease, stroke by 15 to 20%, respectively. Eating white rice, you have a 70% greater risk of diabetes. Replacing it with brown drops it 16%. Replacing white with oats and barley dropped it by 36%. So when we go to these whole plant foods versus the refined plant foods, we see these amazing health benefits and improvements. Now, just a review, our microbial community, they live in us, trillions of them. They stimulate the immune system, they break down toxic compounds, they synthesize vitamins and proteins or amino acids. The key enzymes needed to form vitamin B12 are found in bacteria. So we need bacteria to live. We can't live without it. Okay, what happened there? Okay, hopefully we are okay. All right, what is happening there? I lost my... Let's go back to there. All right, let's see what we got here. Okay. All right. Okay, now when we have the opposite of high gut bacteria richness is low gut bacteria richness. When you don't have that diversity, that healthy diversity of these microbes that live within us, you have higher levels of blood fat, higher levels of insulin, resistance, triglycerides, blood fats, inflammatory markers like C-reactive programs. So when you're on a low fiber diet, lots of refined grains, lots of animal products that have no fiber, it changes your gut microbes and the bacteria that live inside of us. And it creates problems with fat and insulin resistance. So we're looking at diabetes, we're looking at problems with heart and inflammation, which is associated with a whole ton of things. So we want to have more of the plant as a part of our diet program. So the more of the plants we have more this gut microbiota. This is sort of a pyramid. Microbiota is, it's talking about all these organisms that live within us. Symbiosis means they're in harmony with us. Dysbiosis, disharmony, creating health issues for us. So more plants, better environment, better health. Less plants, less health, poor microbe environment. Now, I want to talk about a study that actually puts it all together. Uganda, Africa, coronary heart disease. This is back in the 1950s. There was a landmark study revealed that coronary heart disease, the #1 cause of death in Bermuda, as much as 41% of all deaths, was almost non-existing in an African population in Uganda. Can you imagine? In just about every advanced society today, the #1 cause of death, or the #1 symptom, coronary artery disease, was non-existent, nearly non-existent. Let's take a look. What are the staple foods of Uganda, Africa? They included green plantain, sweet potato, cassava, yams, corn, millet, pumpkin, tomatoes, and green leafy vegetables. Protein intake came exclusively entirely from beans along with nuts. So they had nuts and beans and greens and pumpkins and yams, etc., etc., etc. This was the dietary habits of these people. Now, the daily fat intake was from 16 to 20 grams. That's about 2 tablespoons worth of peanut butter, no more than 5 teaspoons of oil per individual, which was just 10 to 15% of the total calories coming from fat. But from a real practical standpoint, what we're looking at is about 2 tablespoons worth of peanut butter, 5 teaspoons of oil, lots of plants, starches and greens and nuts. And essentially, no, they compared this group with a group in St. Louis in the United States of America. So what they did is autopsy studies. 632 Ugandan men were matched with 632 men from the US to determine the death rates due to coronary artery disease. So they autopsied them, they looked at their arteries, and those who were from Uganda, one individual out of 362 conducted Ugandan man was found to have had heart issues not related to their death. So no one died of heart disease. In fact, they were so surprised that I didn't have that here. They autopsied another 600 and no heart disease. In these Americans, 136 heart attacks, deaths, 22% occurred in the US individuals, more 100 times the rate of coronary heart disease seen in the African men. So what does that tell us? That tells us that heart disease, as we call it, is really not the issue. It's the issue of diet and lifestyle. There's the other side to it, and there is a comparison group that lived in that same era as the Ugandan man, and they consumed, I didn't include this in it, a much higher amount of fat and eggs and dairy products, etc. And a significant number of those men actually died of heart disease. So we see this correlation between lifestyle and disease outcome. Well, so let's put it all together. Sample breakfast. So cereal and baked options. So you could have oatmeal, fruit crisp, granola, plant-based milks, ground flaxseed, 2 tablespoons, 3/4 cups of berries, an apple, an orange, 1 medium size. That's an example. We're looking back at all we've been talking about, these groups, and how can we add these things to our diet so that we can have the best of health. Smoothie is another option there, right? I've got here like a cup of plant-based milk, 2 to 4 cups of greens, 1 to 2 cups of fruits, 1/4 cup of nuts, light colored beans, 1/4 cup. Dates, if you want to give it a little bit more sweetness, you can add truvia or stevia as a non-sugar sweetener to taste, and vanilla extract. And these are options, so you can have a smoothie option for breakfast. Whole grain waffles, pancakes, muffins, or bars, 1 to 2. Fruit spread, 1/2 cup. Fresh fruit, 1 to 2. Nut butter, 1 to 2 tablespoons. Note, the nuts or the seeds can be added to the waffles or pancakes or muffins. Scrambled tofu is another option that could be added to breakfast. 1 to 2 cups, you can have flaxseed muffins, and you can have 1 to 2 cups of fresh salad on the side. Okay, sandwiches or wraps, dark leafy greens, as you can see there, and layers of onions, tomatoes, 1/3 cup of sliced avocados, 1 to 2 cups. You can use hummus, which is a paste made from garbanzos and other items, a veggie burger, 1/2 cup of seasoned tofu, black beans or chili beans, salsa, or healthy mayonnaise. So these are options that can be put together for sandwich or wraps. Salads, you got greens and tomatoes, cucumbers, onions, and peppers. You can make your own dressing with lemon juice. You can have homemade dressing. Italian low-fat tends to be a better, healthier option right from the market. Chopped nuts or seeds, avocado, cooked beans, all of these things could be added to a salad. Veggie bowl. I talked a little bit about this as we started. So you got your vegetable choices, and these are, your broccoli and your kale, your onions, your zucchini. Then your grains, you got quinoa and rice, or you can have sweet potato or millet, starchy type. You can have beans and falafels and savory walnut bowls or soy curls. And we're gonna demonstrate some of those things when we get to the cooking section. So you can see that, and we're gonna provide some recipes so you'll be able to do that. And there's a sauce that you can put over it, right? So you can vary the vegetables and the grains and the beans or meat alternatives, and sauces. So you can make a variety of different types so that you're not eating the same thing all the time, but really flavorful, tasty, yet having all those components of a healthy eating plan. Veggie burgers, burgers made with herbs and grains and starchy vegetables and beans and nuts and seeds, etc., topped with lettuce and tomato and onions and healthy dressings, healthy plant versions, whole grain buns, vegetable salad on the side with dressings. Okay, and then of course you've got vegetable soups. You've got broth and juice or stewed apples. Then you have your carrots, your broccoli, onions, sweet potatoes, pumpkins. You got your herbs. You got low amounts of sodium or salt-free seasoning blends. You don't want to oversalt your foods, but you want to have some flavor in your food. We're looking at sample supper options, right? It could be light soup. You got your salads, could be chopped fruit, dried fruit. Sweetener, a little orange juice concentrate just gives it a nice lift. Coconut flakes, so you can make some really nice things. Fruit soup, thickened cold fruit salad with cornstarch or tapioca, 1 to 2 cups. We've got chia pudding topped with fruits, 1 to 2 cups, or very simple herbal teas with water or juice. Grapes, cherries, pomegranate, or berries. Well, here you have it. These are giving you a overview of some things that you can do and the value of these plant foods. Now, I'm sure some of you have questions, and we're going to answer those questions next time. So make sure you tune in. And in fact, we're going to have a special section just on COVID-19, so you do not want to miss that. I encourage you to invite others to be a part of our time together, and hope you found this inspiring, hopeful. There is power in whole plant foods. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this time we have been able to share about the power and the healing properties you have put within the plant kingdom. Help us to start to apply these principles and to experience the benefits and share those principles with us, with others. Keep us safe until we meet again next week, where we will be looking at some aspects of other types of foods that we have not included in this presentation today. What happens when we consume a diet high in processed foods, high in animal-based products? And we're going to do a special section on COVID-19 and nature's healing remedies. Keep us to that end. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.